Welcome back to episode number 91 of Raise the Banner podcast. We are your three co-hosts as usual. Ben changed his headliner to Mars was nuked by aliens. I don't know what that means, but we're going to roll with it.
That's all this actually.
All right. We three co-hosts, Zach Brewitt, Benny Ball Game, Dareth, myself, Matt Couture. We got a jam-packed episode, but to start us off, boys, how are we doing?
Good.
Doing well. Better now that I know about this headline game we can play.
Yeah. Maybe.
We had some fun.
Maybe the headline should be our state your takes for every episode, and we just close out with explaining why the headline is the way that it is.
Yeah,
that works.
Before we went live, maybe we'll just get more controversial by the episode.
We kicked off live stream by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
All right. Breaking news from Nick Rad. I asked him if he doesn't really believe in space, where is the fake International Space Station? His response: every satellite is within our own atmosphere.
All right. I mean,
it's a bunch of malarkey. It's a bunch of malarkey.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways. Yeah, as you can see, the moon landing was fake, but we don't need to dive too far into that conversation. We are here to talk about the New England Patriots. We are here to talk about the Boston Red Sox. We are here to talk about a little bit maybe of the Boston Bruins. They do start tonight. I couldn't really honestly tell you a lot of what's going on with the Boston Bruins because I just, to tell you a lot about hockey in general, I just don't follow it the way I used to. They got a lot of new guys. Jeremy Swayman needs to come up big tonight. In the season in general, if they want to have a chance to make some noise this year. But we are going to start us off with the Boston Red Sox. I do want to jump into a little bit of what went wrong. They obviously were eliminated. The last time we talked was just before Game 2, so we haven't had a chance to really get into what went wrong there in Game 2 and Game 3. As everybody knows, they fell off and lost both games to the Yankees. Zach, you obviously missed last week, so I'll give you the floor here. What went wrong in the last two games there, and what are you looking for really in terms of what you need to see this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, the two games they lost were really more of the same that we've been talking about with the defectiveness and deficiencies of this team, right? Jeremy Duran misses that fly ball. You make that catch, right? Who knows if we win that game, whatever. The lack of power. I don't know that we had a home run. Maybe Trevor Story had one in the first game, but I don't remember. And then, kind of more runners in scoring position, just overall bad defense, Nathaniel Lowe as well. So I do put some blame on the players, obviously, but Breslow, has to know that you have to add more to the deadline, and we can talk about that more, I'm sure. But that was the biggest thing to me is just more of the same with this team is again, the lack of power and just defense. The pitching I thought was decent. Obviously, with Giolito going down, you kind of knew that you had to win those first two games because Connolly early was good, not great. But again, given that he had a handful of starts in his career before going into a winner-take-all, series in Yankee Stadium, was going to be a tough ask, no matter who it was. So to answer your question of what I want to see in the offseason, is more depth, right? I don't really want to enter next year with David Hamilton on this team. Again, I don't want to enter the season with a lot of these same platoon guys, same kind of I saw a tweet today of Willie Abreu is a hot topic because yes, he was hurt, and that's kind of been another theme with him throughout his career. He's one of your best power hitters, 22 home runs, which I think was second on the team this year, but out often and with lefties. So if you're going to have it's a completely different team with lefties versus righties, that's a concern. And obviously we are a lefty-heavy lineup anyways. And then a legit number two, right? Do you go out and do what you did last year with Garrett Crochet When you missed out on him at the deadline, now you want to go get. Now you get him at the winter meetings. Do you do that same thing with Joe Ryan, Sandy Alcantara, Dylan Cease, one of these guys? A legit number 2. I don't know what Ben is shoveling into his mouth, but
Potato salad.
Hell yeah. A legit number 2 starter, depth pieces that can actually handle the bat and are actually good on defense. And then power, right? I would love to see someone like Pete Alonso coming here. I don't know that Kyle Schwarber, 2 things, is going to leave Philly, but also I don't know that he fits what Breslow and the front office want, which is the ability to move around players, right? He couldn't really play first base when he was here. Does that change? Has that changed when he's been primarily a first baseman, or I'm sorry, DH in Philly? I'm not sure. So Pete Alonso makes a lot more sense there if you want to move off, and I would move off from Tristan Casas as well. Drake May, is that Mahomes? Are those the top 4?
You see where they're walking into, like the graphic?
Oh, is that where Super Bowl is this year?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
It's like it's for like going into the. It would be like the NFC Championship and the AFC Championship headline.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking for, right? Is upgrade the positions that need to be upgraded. You have to retain Bregman. Otherwise, Breslow is a catastrophic failure for trading away Devers. I mean, it already is a failure. You got nothing in return for him. Kyle Harrison stinks, or Jordan Hicks stinks, I should say, and Kyle Harrison is okay. We think you have to retain Bregman. If you let him walk for nothing, then you truly go into next year with no power bat and nothing in return for Devers. So you have to upgrade, I would say, first base, second base, and then number 2 starter and power bats.
All right. Any ball game?
I would agree. Except for I don't necessarily think they necessarily need to upgrade at second base. Only because I suspect that Trevor Story is not going to opt out. So I'm going to suspect that the inside track to second base is going to be Marcelo Mayer. And I'd be fine with Marcelo Mayer being your opening day second baseman. It all depends on his health. So if he's not ready to go, or you don't believe in him, or Trevor Story does opt out and he doesn't come back and he gets a big deal somewhere else, and now it's like, okay, well, if Marcelo is healthy, he's our shortstop. Well, of course, now second base becomes a priority. I wholeheartedly agree at first. I think, obviously, in an ideal world, if we want to have our cake and eat it too, they go get a guy like a Pete Alonso, who you could probably get him on a medium length deal. You might need to give him, 2 or 3 years. I'd have to look at his age. I don't think he's old per se, but I don't think you would necessarily need to give him more than a 3-year guarantee. So, who knows if he's interested in coming here. He was a topic of conversation during last offseason. And he kind of fell into that, like the Jordan Montgomery of 2 years ago, where he was holding out, and even Alex Bregman of this year, he was holding out for a long-term deal, never got it, and I think he settled on a 1-year contract to go back to Queens and play for the Mets. So first base is definitely a top priority. If you don't get Pete Alonso, a couple of guys that I wouldn't mind seeing here, although the profile isn't ideal, Vinny Pasquantino or Josh Naylor. Who would be relatively inexpensive, medium length contract option guys. Both are lefties, right? So it doesn't exactly fit the bill of bringing in a righty power bat. I'm right with Zach. Like, you have to figure out a way to keep Alex Bregman in Boston. I don't know what it would take. I think realistically, it kind of starts with, if he does opt out, then you kind of have to go to him and say, let's talk something like 3 or 4 years at, if it's a 4-year deal, you're probably, I would imagine the conversation is going to be somewhere in the high 20s of millions of dollars. If it's a 3-year deal, you might need to be more like 30 to 32 just because it's 1 year less. I would hate the idea of like a 3-year, $96 million deal, which is he gets a sizable pay raise on the annual side of things, money-wise. But in terms of total dollars, right? So you're ripping up the old contract, or he opts out of the old contract, which means he doesn't get the deferred money in what starts in like 2031 or something. So if you give him a $396 million contract, the total dollars you would have paid him out over the 4 years would have worked out to be $116 million, which is a $4 million savings on what you signed him for, including the. But you got to figure out a way to keep him here. I understand he had a quad issue, which is it's not exactly a fluke injury, and you don't love soft tissue issues with your legs, especially for a guy who plays third base. But you got to figure out a way to keep him here. He loves Boston. He thrives in this atmosphere, and just the player profile, the elite defense at third. He's not an elite power bat, but he's a good power bat. I'd have to look at the numbers. I think if he had played a full season, he would have been somewhere in like the mid to upper 20s of home runs. What did he finish with? 18 home runs, something like that. So, but the only other thing that I see as like a need in the offseason is you got to figure out a way to either trade for Joe Ryan or figure out some other guy who's a number two. I do like Dylan Cease, but not as a number two. I think you could sign him to be like a number three or a number four. But if you can figure out a way to bring in a Joe Ryan who would turn 30 in the middle of the season, I think if you trade for him in the offseason, you get him for 3 more years of arbitration. It's 2 or 3. So like that becomes a priority. And then less of a concern is I think they got to figure out the log jam in the outfield. Obviously with Roman Anthony fully healthy, you've got 4 legitimate everyday outfield caliber players. Obviously it's him, Abreu, Rafaela, and Duran. And so obviously one of those guys is the odd man out, and it's not Anthony, it's not Rafaela. And Abreu's looking at possibly winning a second consecutive Gold Glove in right field. I think you'd be really hard pressed to convince the organization that trading Willie Abreu is a smart decision. However, if you're using him to acquire, say, a Joe Ryan, I think you seriously have to consider moving him if that's what it would take to acquire Joe Ryan. I don't know if it would. And then you kind of go from there. But yeah, those are my priorities. The bullpen's fine in my opinion. I think if you add some depth pieces, but the back end of the bullpen to me is fine. Like Whitlock and Chapman are as good as back end of the bullpen as you'll find on most teams. So that's fine. Maybe some depth guys, but number 2 starter, I think they have enough depth in the back of the rotation that they can figure it out. And then ideally a righty power bat.
Who did you mention as the potential piece for getting Joe Ryan?
So I said I would consider trading Willie or Abreu if that's what it would take to get Joe Ryan, only because if you trade Willie or Abreu, you immediately put Roman Anthony in right. So it's not like you're not at like a net negative. I think in an ideal world, you somehow move Duran, not Abreu, and then you put Roman in left, which again, left field's not easy to play, but left field at Fenway to me is easier to play than right field at Fenway. The margin for error in left is way bigger than the margin for error in right. Like if you misplay a ball in right field, like with the wrong guy, like that's probably a stand-up triple and might be an inside the park home run if you really botch it. Yeah. But I think Roman Anthony could play right. You might have some growing pains early because he'd have to get used to it. But, if the conversation, with Minnesota is we only give you Joe Ryan if you give us Willie or Abreu. Done. Given, granted, if they're like, oh yeah, well, you need to give us Willie or Abreu, you need to give us Peyton Tolley or Connolly early, and you need to give us either Password or Luis Perales or one of these other top prospects in the system, like slightly different conversation, but assuming it's a fair market value return, if the answer is it has to be Willie or Abreu, like you have to consider doing that because then you just slot Roman Anthony into right field and you're filling in a much bigger need by getting a Joe Ryan.
Yeah, you're upgrading two positions. You're upgrading your starting right fielder, and you're upgrading your number two starter in the rotation. It's a no-brainer from that. But again, does that get it? But I agree with you. I would absolutely look to move Willier for someone like Joe Ryan.
Yeah, and realistically, because the other thing, and it's not really a need per se, but I think you've got to figure out a way to move Masataka Yoshida.
Absolutely.
Am I okay if he's your DH batting in the bottom of the lineup? Sure. It's not what I want, but like, am I okay with it? Like, am I okay with him being the DH batting 7th or 8th or 6th? Okay. If that means that, we've got Roman Anthony at the top of the lineup, Bregman, Story, and then like a legit power bat, like a Pete Alonso in the middle of the order. Like, okay, fine. I can be okay with Massa batting, 7th in this lineup and DHing. But the problem with trading Yoshida is, in all likelihood, a team is going to tell you we would have to eat half of the contract, and I don't think John Henry is willing to eat much, if any, of Massa's contract to ship him out of town. It's just not his MO. He wasn't willing to eat money on Devers to get a better return. He's like, no, get the best return you can, where I don't have to keep paying Rafael Devers. If he's not willing to pay Rafael Devers to get a better return, I don't foresee him paying a team anything to get Masataka Yoshida out the door.
That's a different story, Benjamin.
It's really not. Like John Henry, it's really not.
Yes, it.
We
just saw him eat money on the sale deal. Like, asking him to eat money on a 10-year contract where he's going to have to eat it for the next decade is so way different than asking him to eat it for the next 1 or 2 years.
But here's the thing: is when you're eating money on a player that's traded, you're not eating money over the length of a 10-year deal. You're writing him you're basically writing him a check now and say, here you go. Here's the portion of the salary that you don't want to pay.
That's not generally how it works.
I mean, you could be on a payment plan, sure, but you don't have to pay it off over the entirety of the remainder of the contract.
I mean, yeah, but that's usually how it ends up working out. Is like John Henry's not. So if Henry was going to have to pay out, say, $80 million of Devers' deal, he wasn't going to want to have to write an $80 million check with Devers to trade him. Versus if you have to pay up, say, 12 of Yoshida's deal, it's like if he has to pay six,
it's going to be higher than that.
Okay, like you know what I'm talking about. If he's going to have to pay up 15 of his deal, like, and he has to, Ben, I'm going to drive to your house and I'm going to.
Nope.
Oh God. If he has to pick up 16 of his deal, that's over half. It's going to be okay.
Half of his contract is 18, but that's fine.
Okay. It's not the biggest deal if he has to pay $8 million a year for the next 2 years. Like it's just a completely different angle in terms of eating money. He just ate $17 million to ship Story out, just so he can get an actual return. John Hurry does not like winning.
He likes money. But yeah, I mean, and who knows, right? I understand the contract and the money situation is different between Yoshida and Devers. And there's some history of John Henry willing to eat money to get rid of players. But I don't know. I get the feeling that he's not going to be willing to pay $18 million to another team so that Yoshida doesn't play for us anymore. Just my gut instinct. But if you can figure out a way to do it, then I think you have to, right? If it means, you trade Duran and Yoshida, or you add Yoshida to a Willie or Abreu deal to get a Joe Ryan, like I think that has to be a conversation, just because, he's not a guy that I think really that fits. The problem is he's overpaid for what he gives you, which is what makes me feel like teams are not going to be willing to take him on unless the Red Sox are eating some of his contract.
I mean, they're going to have to eat a big portion of it to dump Yoshida. I mean, to go back and to the beginning of all this, Joe Ryan's going to be the most likely, target. And I spoke on this in a video that I pushed out earlier. The connection's already there, right? They already spoke with Joe Ryan. They already spoke with the Twins on this at the deadline. The most logical scenario, I think, here for every side is a deal that centers around Duran getting shipped out. Now, does he fit the Twins timeline and stuff like that? No, I don't think so. I don't know. Now, I don't know. I can't speak for the Twins. They don't seem like the brightest organization. But, you might need to get a third team involved, and that third team could be a team like the Padres, who we know absolutely loves Jarren Duran. So if you get a team like the Padres and they send prospects to the Twins, all of a sudden that becomes a lot more doable. Now you get a package that sends prospects from Padres to the Twins. All of a sudden you add in maybe a Perales and in a piece or two like that. And then you get Joe Ryan here, right? And in that sense, you clear up the outfield the cluster in the outfield. You add Joe Ryan as the number 2. And then just in that sense, right, they could not do anything else to that rotation. Basically, we'll replace Giolito with Joe Ryan. And the rotation's already in a solid spot. Not phenomenal, solid spot. Because that would put you with Crochet, Joe Ryan, a very, very, very legit 1-2. Like, beyond legit 1-2. Bayo as a number 3, which I think he showed, he kind of staggered a little bit at the end of the year, but he showed for the most part this year that he is a 3-ish type of pitcher.
Yep.
Then there's, as your 4 or 5, like, it's a little bit of uncertainty, but they would have a handful of options for that 4 or 5 spot, whether that be a veteran like Crawford finally getting healthy back, whether it's Hunter Dobbins getting back healthy, Richard Fitz, Early, Tolley, or, signing 1 or 2 other veterans, right? And then the other option obviously would be to go and sign another, like a Walker Buehler option, which I spoke on again in the video I released. And we know that there's going to be multiple other options, and we talked about it off the air, Ben, at certain points, but like a Dylan Cease, right? A Dylan Cease that could use a 1-year deal, a Shane Bieber that could be potentially looking at like a 1 or 2 year deal. Both guys could be looking at like prove it deals. The Cease is coming off I would say, right, like a pretty down year for him. You don't know what he's going to be. His market will be. I mean, he'll probably get 3 or 4 or 5 year offers, but what are they going to be in terms of AAV? He might want a 1-year deal, like prove it type of, to regain his market. And then Bieber, I think, will probably have a pretty shaky market as well. Both guys fit into that, like, hey, come here. I think Bailey's reputation around the league is pretty good. Come here, regain your momentum, and then maybe hit the market again next offseason. And at that point, right, and it kind of would line up perfect for the Red Sox, is if you could sign a guy like that for 1 year, it helps them in the short term, but then you could extend Joe Ryan and it will kick in after that. So the money will kind of counteract. And 2, by the time that they leave, guys like Fitz, Dobbins, Tolley, and Early will kind of, and I guess this is optimism and expectation in one, will have become more established, right? They'll ideally be more ready by the mid next year, the end of next year. We'll have a better idea of what they are as players.
Yep.
And so ideally, like that, I think that's kind of like the perfect sense for the rotation. If you don't, and I guess you could still do this, but if you don't get a guy like Cease or Bieber, but even if you do, you can still do it. I would love for them to like get another rock solid bullpen piece. And Ben, I know you said like Whitlock and Chapman is a is a very good 1-2 in the back. But like, if they could get another reliable bullpen arm, I mean, Ben was like screaming all the playoffs, like, please don't put Weiser in the game.
Ugh.
He was like their number 3 bullpen arm this year. Like,
Can't have that next year.
You know what I mean? So they did, and so for Ben to be basically saying, I don't want them to be using their 3rd bullpen arm in the playoffs, tells me like maybe they should find another option that is maybe a little bit more trusting. He had his up and down moments. I think Ben was being a little bit dramatic in that, but that's also
he got burned out at the end. You couldn't trust him with runners on or inherited runners. He was a
they overused him.
Waiting to happen. Yeah, they did.
They overused him. They rode him into the ground throughout the season for sure. But again, that's another option that like I would really like them to see them do is like get another rock solid good bullpen arm that if you get into the 7th inning of a playoff game, right, and everyone's ready to go, you get into the 7th inning and you can go boom, 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 back to back, and you got 3 dominant relievers. Like you put teams on notice of like, you better have that lead heading into the 7th inning because if you don't, you're in trouble. And we kind of had that a little bit with Whitlock and Chapman, but obviously, like we only played three games, and we didn't have the lead into those scenarios. Obviously,
yeah. I mean, there's a couple of guys like bullpen wise that would be interesting for me. Michael Soroka, who's a bullpen arm in the Cubs organization right now, and then AJ Minter, who the Red Sox were tied to loosely.
He got hurt, right?
But yeah, I mean, but they're both still young. I mean, Soroka's I think 28, 29. Minter's a little older. I think he's 32.
There's also what's his face from the Padres that I assume they're gonna let him go. They brought in.
Well, they have Estrada, Suarez. Okay.
He's gonna be a free agent. They just traded for Mason Miller. His face from
Mason Miller.
So I have a hard time imagining they're going to spend money to keep Suarez too.
I would agree. So
I don't know what Suarez wants to be if he'll get paid as a closer, but
yeah, and I mean another name to throw out there. So I like the Dylan Cease option. I mean to your point, it wasn't a good year by him. Having said that, it wasn't a terrible year. The nice thing that you get at a Dylan Cease is if you include the COVID year, which again was shortened, so take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
He's basically pitched in every possible game that he was eligible to pitch in. Yeah. Since he became a full-time starter in 2020. Again, he only made 12 starts, but that's because they only played 60 games. So that's more or less a full season for a pitcher.
Well, we thought that with Giolito, and then he blew out his arm. The second he got here.
But Giolito didn't come here without a history of arm problems either. Like Giolito.
That's what I'm saying, though. Giolito came here, and he was like, he's the bulldog. He's going to give you 30 plus starts a game. Like he's going to be good to go. And then he comes here and then he blew out his arm.
No, what I'm saying though,
I thought he was already signed with a blown out arm. That was like the Chaim Bloom special.
Lucas Giolito came here with a history of arm problems.
Oh,
Lucas Giolito. Yes.
Maybe years prior, like many years prior, but he was a bulldog. Like he had gone 30 plus starts for like many years prior to that.
That's not correct.
I thought he was signed with the intention of him missing the first year and then coming back the second year.
No, that was Lucas. That was Pop. That was multiple other guys.
Pablo Sandoval.
That was the famous Chaim Bloom thing where he would sign guys that were injured.
Yeah, he did that. He did that with not Pablo Sandoval. Sandoval was
Adalberto Mondesi.
He did that with
Patrick Sandoval.
Patrick Sandoval.
Who was the lefty that he did that with?
Wasn't that Sandoval?
James Paxton.
Yes, but no. James Paxton.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
But
yes, yes.
so when Giolito first came up with the Nationals and the White Sox, he had some arm problems. He only made 11 starts over 2 seasons in 2016 and 2017. But then, so 2018, 32 starts, 2019, 29 starts, and then 12 during the COVID year. And then in the 2 years post-COVID, prior to it was 31 and 30. Then he made 33 starts in 2023, he was traded from Chicago to the Angels, and then traded again to the, I don't know if they were the Guardians at this
No,
point.
he was released by the released by the Angels and then picked up.
Oh, the Angels. The Angels cut him. Yeah, and then that's right. Okay, but he got traded to L.A. and then obviously he needed Tommy John last year, and then pitched this year 26 starts. So
like I said, I was right. So I would accept apologies.
I was right. He signed in 2024 and missed the entire year, and then he did the.
Yes, but he blew out his arm in spring training.
Oh, it's spring training. I thought he blew it out at the very end.
No, they didn't.
So then, never mind. I'm wrong.
No, they didn't sign him. But when he first came up into the big leagues, he had some arm issues back in his early 20s. I mean, obviously, elbows are finicky, right? Like you can blow out your elbow any time. But when you look at a guy like Dylan Cease, right? So Dylan Cease, aside from, I'm just looking at his numbers. So like Giolito in his full seasons has only one time exceeded 180 innings. Dylan Cease has done that multiple times. I mean, sure, like you could probably put Dylan Cease into a similar category as Giolito. But just in terms of not an expensive investment, a guy who is a proven innings eater. I mean, obviously we weren't expecting Giolito to blow his arm out, but if you can't get a guy like him, I wouldn't hate the idea, although I don't love having multiple lefties in your rotation. Although I think I
don't really care about that.
You have a guy like Framber Valdez, who's a free agent this offseason, who is a decent middle of the rotation guy who, again, eats innings. You might luck into a decent strikeout season every once in a while, because I think there's a couple of years ago he had like back-to-back 200 plus strikeout seasons. He's just not that guy anymore. I think he's 34. But you could but that's a decent guy who, a veteran, like low financial, like short-term investment that wouldn't necessarily get in the way of the long-term development of Hunter Dobbins, Dick Fitz, Connolly, Peyton Tolley.
Speaking of options for next year, Patrick Sandoval will be another option as well. Completely unreliable in terms of what to expect, but he will. Like, we have no idea what to expect. But at one point, he was a pretty damn good pitcher, like a couple of years ago, before things kind of blew up and his arm blew up.
Yeah.
But no, I do want to transition though. We'll have plenty of off-season talk for the Patriots. I am going to start this up as basically a new episode, because I do want to kind of group this into 2 different episodes if we can. So I'm going to do a little quick new intro of episode number 92. So bear with me. All right. And welcome back to episode number 93 of Raise the Banner Podcast. It is your 3 co-hosts, as usual. Ben, I just said I'm doing a re-entry here. Benny Ballgame, Girth, Zach Pruitt.
This would be episode 92. Your math is wrong.
92. You know what? 92. 92, episode number 92. Your 3 co-hosts, Matt Couture, Benny Ballgame, Dearth, and Zach Pruitt. I already have asked you boys how you doing, because we just recorded episode 91. But now it's time to talk some New England Patriots, and they just went into Buffalo, and they took Benny Ballgame's 0.1% chance to win the game and said, "Suck it, Ben." That's what they had to say. They came in, flew into Buffalo, upset the Bills. I'm going to give you the floor, Ben, because I asked you. I said, give me your odds that the Patriots go into Buffalo win. And you said 0%. And I said, okay, can we be realistic? And you said 0.1%. And I said, okay, can we be realistic? And he said, I'm being serious. And I said, okay, you're in that mood. Can you be serious? He's like, I'm being serious. No, they pulled the upset. What do you have to say?
That I was spot on with the 0.1% chance of an upset. No, I mean I was. It's funny. I remember you asked me shortly thereafter. You said if the Patriots win on Sunday, they will be blank, and I said above 500.
And that pissed me off also because you knew that was not what I was looking for.
Which is not a false statement, because they are back above 500. Back above 500? No, they're above 500 for the first time this year. So, I mean, obviously, it was it was certainly a statement win. Early part of Vrabel's head coaching career here in New England. You could argue, aside from the fact that he didn't score any touchdowns, you could make a legitimate argument that this was Drake May's best game as a professional football player. He looked every bit like the quarterback we thought he could mature into. I realize it's only one game, so you certainly have to build on it and prove that it wasn't just some flash in the pan, Sunday night, catching Buffalo on an off day, situation. But obviously, I look at that game a little bit of a glass half full, glass half empty perspective. The glass half full perspective, obviously Drake May, Stephon Diggs, second straight 100-yard receiving game, while unsustainable. One thing I did not realize was that he did that playing 50% of the offensive snaps. So while I don't think that he can keep up the pace. If you look at the numbers over the last two games and then extrapolate that out over a full season, the pace that he's at is not realistic. It's a pace of 2,100 receiving yards. Again, not realistic. A couple other glass half full things. I thought the defense played really, really well. They basically took James Cook out of the game. He still got some decent yards, but he wasn't the dynamic player that he had been through the first month of the season. Some guys that really showed up. I thought Barmore played really well. Tonga played really well again. He's been a big, big surprise. And then I can't think of the guy's name. Is it Curden? He's the defensive lineman. Aside from the one boneheaded penalty, I thought he had a pretty good game. I thought Will Campbell really held his own. There's some conflicting information out there. Pro Football Focus had him not allowing a single sack, hit, hurry, or pressure. Pro Football Focus on 40 snaps had him basically giving up nothing. They gave him like a 93% pass rush win rate, something to that effect, and then an 87% overall pass blocking grade. During the game, NBC had him allowing half a sack, and Maz on 98.5 had him giving up one sack. So some conflicting information, but I thought he played really, really well. The Bills were throwing Joey Bosa. They threw AJ Epinesa at him. And I know that Bosa's not in the prime of his career anymore, but I think going into that game, he was Pro Football Focus's 6th rated edge rusher in the NFL. So I thought he played really, really well. So that's kind of my glass half full. And you can throw Marcus Jones in there too. I thought he played really, really well. The interception he had on Josh Allen was a very, very good play by him. Not the best decision by Josh Allen, but great play by Marcus Jones. My glass half empty is that the team still can't run the ball to save their lives. Even with 2 tight end sets, they can't run. In terms of yards per carry, the Patriots running backs, there's 108 qualifying running backs on yards per carry. And I forget the order, but the Patriots running backs rank 77th and tied for 83rd in yards per rush this year. So not good. The linebackers have been kind of a letdown. It's funny because Matt was asking me about should he trade Dalton Kincaid, and then Dalton Kincaid basically caught every pass thrown to him on Sunday.
I didn't trade him in Dynasty.
The Pats, that's good. The Pats, they do not have guys in that second line of defense that can cover anybody, which is really unfortunate. So any intermediate passing game to bigger-bodied wide receivers and tight ends, most teams are going to get whatever they want. Like I get that Spillane and Gibbons are good run stoppers. They're obviously very good against the run up front. They can't cover. And then obviously you have Landry coming off the edge. He's a decent pass rush guy. But overall, a very, very good win. I think that, this was not a win that I had on their schedule. I think that if I look back, I think I still had them at 3-2 at this point in the season. I had them winning 3 out of the first 4 and then losing to Buffalo. But the nice thing is that hopefully they're mature enough and well coached enough, and I think they are, that they're not going to look back and treat the Saints game like a trap game because you had some big emotional win in Buffalo on primetime national television. They have an opportunity to reel off, like, this could possibly be a 6-game win streak a month from now. I mean, I know that, the look ahead, you never want to do that, but these next 4 games are very winnable games. I get that you're going into you have your second of 3 in a row road games coming up this weekend. New Orleans defense is pretty opportunistic, not a ton of household names, but they do force turnovers. So you can't just kind of sleepwalk through it. I mean, maybe. But they have an opportunity to really set themselves up for success. These next 8 games, like if you, again, I just said we don't really want to look ahead, but if you look at the next 8 games on their schedule, there's really only one game that you could realistically argue, in my opinion, that it's not a winnable game. And I think it's the 5th game of this 8-game stretch, which is at Tampa, who look very, very good. Their defense is a little suspect, but they're 4-1. The offense is good. Egbuka looks every bit like the top wide receiver prospect. I thought, I know we all loved him on this program. He was my personal wide receiver 1. So I'll put that little notch in the belt for me, Matt, because you were wrong. He's definitely better than Matthew Golden. But you look at these next 8 weeks and go, it's not unrealistic to say that going into the Week 14 bye, the Patriots could be 10-3. I don't know if they get there, but I don't think it's impossible to think that they could be 10-3 at going into the bye week. I think, again, they're a young team that's still growing and developing. So I think, is it more realistic that they're 8-5 or 9-4? Probably, but you're not going to convince me that 10 wins before the bye, after what we've seen, is off the table.
Zach, I just wanted to let you know that he says these words, and then when it's him and I messaging and he lists out the schedule and we're talking about like expectations, and I say what basically he just said, he questions what I say.
I believe it fully because what I was going to say is I demand an apology, I think. Demand is the right word. I wasn't on last time, but before you and I were back and forth, you thought they were going to lose to the Panthers, and they obliterated them. So I am open for apologies if you're open to that. But
he doesn't apologize. He
just admits.
I'll have to go back.
The other person was wrong.
I don't know as if I thought they were going to lose. Did I actually say that I thought they were going to lose, or did I think that it was possible that it was?
You said it was. They were much closer of a team, talent-wise, coaching-wise, and they. I don't know. You may have not predicted that they were going to lose, but certainly.
I am mildly retarded, so it's very possible that I said those things, and in which case I would very much apologize because I don't. If I said that I thought the Patriots were equally as talented and coached as the Panthers, I mean, maybe the aliens that nuked Mars and it invaded my body and made me say things that I don't think. But if that's the case, then yes.
We also went back and forth on who we thought was the better team between the Falcons and the Patriots. So
that is true. Early in the season, I felt that the Falcons were. I think I gave them. I thought, if I remember right, either on par and maybe slightly better talented team. I would say now, outside of Bijan Robinson, the Patriots have a more talented team than the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I think their offensive roster is probably better. Although now with Diggs being as good as he's been the last couple weeks, who knows? But Yeah, Bijan is far and away the better running back than we have. But yeah, if I'm giving my take on the last, I guess I'll give the last 2 games. Buffalo is a surprise for sure. I don't know what. Buffalo was like a surprise. Obviously, going in there on Sunday night, and Drake May's first. Primetime game. Under the lights, everything else, like, played as good as he could. 2 of the best throws I've seen him make. I mean, obviously the one that everyone's seen is the one on the run down to Diggs by the sideline. But the one over the top to Hunter Henry, where Hunter had to go up and high point it, was just a great read. And then the one.
Oh yeah, that was that. And yeah, I would lump in, just to piggyback, and then I'll give you back the floor. I would say the pass to Booty on the sideline.
I was just gonna say the same. That was my next one. I was just gonna say,
is in that same category as that Hunter Henry play.
100%. That the one that Hunter Henry, I thought was off when it left his hand. I thought it was a surefire. Another one of his what's become sort of a theme is a high, overthrown pass, potentially interception, and it was just the perfect air under it, and then Hunter Henry high pointed it. But it's exactly what I was hoping to see. Obviously, you mentioned that we can't run the ball, but the connection between him and Diggs is getting better and better each week. Diggs knows what Drake wants. Drake knows where Diggs is going to be. The 2 of them have a connection that hasn't been there between a quarterback and receiver since Brady Gronk, and even if you want to go the pure wide receiver position, it's Brady Edelman. So that's fun to see. Defense is coming together. Obviously, with Gonzo out there, it's just way better than without him. That's just a given. But yeah, nothing really to be said about anything necessarily negative. I wouldn't say about the game. I think Borregales was great. There was some concerns about him making that 52-yard field goal at the end of the game to win it. Like, could he do it? Yeah. Talked a lot about Drake May being able to go under the lights in his first time. Borregales is a rookie, never done that before. After missing, what did he miss? 2 extra points back to back in Miami. So like that was as big a kick as you're going to get. The only downside to the season so far is that they should be 4-1. If you pull Ramondre Stevenson or you don't throw a pick in the end zone, like, you're 4-1. You're tied with Buffalo for number 1 in the division. You're leading the division now because you beat Buffalo. That being said, we're 3-2. I had us at 3-2 as well, similar to Ben. I had us losing this game, but yeah. Now you have the easier in quotes part of the schedule. Inexperienced quarterbacks, inexperienced coaches, inexperienced teams, bad teams. So.
Yep. If you ignore the part where I predicted the Patriots lose, I predicted they win this past weekend. But
yeah, exactly, ignore the parts where I was wrong and I'm always right.
Yeah, no, for me, like, the biggest thing that I took away from this weekend, beyond the obvious that it's a big win, it sets up a really smooth schedule over the next month, were 2 things. One, it was a statement game for Drake May. As you said, this was the first primetime game for him, right? So this was the first time, and real NFL fans see him play and see his highlights, but like, not many of them, unless you're on prime time, fans around the country actually sit down and watch like players play full games, right? Unless a player is on a maybe you watch a Thursday night game or a Sunday night game, Monday night game, whatever it may be, but they generally don't sit back and watch you play full games unless you're on and you're the only team on.
Yeah.
Okay. So, they were in Jacksonville. They were in Europe last year to play Jacksonville, and they got embarrassed. He didn't really look that great. He played in that game.
Yep.
this was an opportunity, Sunday Night Football, prime time in Buffalo. Like, this was his chance to really show up, and he did, right? The first half, I think, for both sides, was very shaky. I remember I posted about it after the first quarter. I was like, just as everybody expected, like 3-0 Patriots, like multiple turnovers on the Bill side, a turnover on the Patriots side. It was a really kind of disastrous first quarter for both sides. And then 6:30 going into the halftime. I saw someone kind of come and post about it and was like, oh, like Buffalo gave that game away with the turnovers and stuff like that. And I'm like, I mean, not really. Like, I get what people were saying, but it was 6-3 going into half, right? And beyond that, the turnover ratio was 2-1 at that point. It was 6-3 going into halftime. Okay, so Buffalo was completely in that game. What really happened was in the second half, the Patriots just made more plays than the Buffalo Bills. And so when you look at that, on top of that, the Patriots literally gave Buffalo 30 plus yards on that last touchdown drive that they scored. They basically kind of handed them a touchdown. Maybe they still score anyways, but they basically handed them a drive.
Made it a shorter drive for sure.
Yeah. And, for May, he had the opportunity and the chance to show up and show out, and between, getting dragged to the ground and that play there, that he still managed to get to Diggs, whether it's the rolling out to his right and hitting Diggs along the sideline that everyone saw. What was it? 13 or 14 in the second half for like 188 yards.
Yep.
I believe that the stat line, I think I sent to Ben, over the last 4 games on 3rd and 4th down in the second half, he is 18 for 18. 18 for 18 on 3rd and 4th down in the second half of the last 4 games. He basically showed the hell up and showed the hell out. And so for that kind of shows to me is like he's got it. He is there. He is the guy. And on top of that, like you mentioned Borregales, right? That was a big moment for me because it showed trust, obviously, in a guy like him. Not that Vrabel had a ton of choice in going with him, but it's a big moment for us to say, like, we needed him to show up, and he came in and made the big kick. But there is a clear belief within that team in what Vrabel's selling.
100%.
There's a clear belief in that organization. Okay. And there's a little bit of question. Like, he came out of the comment today and he again kind of defended Stevenson and basically was like, the blame's on him, but like everyone blames him. But what about the people that like are letting him get hit? And I'm like, that kind of doesn't really make any sense because he kind of fumbled on a ball that was just like blatantly his fault. Like,
he fumbled in the secondary,
Yeah, like that didn't really make any sense to me. But as a whole, what he's selling, the players are buying. Yes. And so those two things were by far the biggest things that I come out of. And I said this to you, Ben, prior to the game in terms of like, what would it mean to go into Buffalo and win? And again, you said it would be like it wouldn't really mean anything to go into Buffalo. And I said, you're being a jackass again. And I said it would mean a lot. Like, and it does coming out of this. Now, if they go into New Orleans and get their ass stomped, it can kind of put a big blanket on top of everything. But
yeah,
as things currently stand, those were two big things that came out to me, and I think came out to a lot of people. Like, it put the Patriots on the map, right? And it put Drake May on the map of like, okay, they didn't just beat a couple crappy teams and beat up on a lonely Panthers team. No, they went into Buffalo and Drake May outplayed Josh Allen. And that is a big, big, big statement to make on a national stage. And Oh man, I know it's only been 5 years. I know, and I
Will
know
we have a
many
quarterback
fans.
again?
I know, and this sounds selfish as hell, and people will comment and be like, poor you guys, poor Patriots fans, because many have been suffering for a lot longer than us. But it's been a rough last 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and the light is there. I think as Patriots fans, we can kind of look at this and say that we have our guy at the quarterback position, and I pretty confidently say that Mike Vrabel is likely the answer at head coach as well. And quick comment as well: Josh McDaniels has done a great job so far with Drake May.
Yep.
I would like to see him get a little bit more vertical in the offense. That comes a little bit with the lack of speed overall with the receivers, I think. But I think it will come regardless. I think they'll, as things get a little bit more comfortable in the offense, they'll take a little bit more shots. But as a whole, I really like the nuances in the offense. I really like the comfort that he's put Drake May in. He's done a very good job so far over the first 5 weeks.
I agree. The one thing they got to figure out a way, and I think this is more of a personnel issue than it is a Josh McDaniels issue, which is funny because over the last couple of days, I've heard people say like is Josh McDaniels the problem in New England, which I don't really get the thought process there, and credit Greg Bedard.
Who's saying that? Point them out to me.
I'll see if I can go back and find it. It was just like people were talking about it on 98.5, but and so
There's your answer.
not the radio people, like callers were complaining to the radio hosts that they're like that Josh McDaniels was not necessarily that he was doing a bad job, but that if there's problems with the offense, it's McDaniels' fault, not the personnel issue. I don't think that they were saying overall he's been bad. But anyway, so credit Greg Bedard for this stat, because I heard him on yesterday's afternoon show on Felger and Maz saying that without any true elite options on offense, right? Like Stephon Diggs is getting better, but they don't have a down the field passing game, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think that their biggest threats are the short and intermediate game in the passing attack, but that despite they don't have elite weapons, the Patriots rank 11th in passing DVOA after week 5, and that's basically because of Drake May's talent wrapped into Josh McDaniels' system. That despite the roadblocks, I guess I'll call it, the Patriots offense is persevering in spite of the fact that their best option is a 31-year-old Stephon Diggs who may not be 100% back from an ACL injury. Like, he's only really been out there 50% of the time 2 weeks in a row, and I get that he's balled out these last couple of weeks, which means like he's getting back to where he was pre-ACL tear. But outside of that, they, and again, no shade to Hunter Henry, but like he's not an elite pass-catching tight end in the NFL.
You asked Tom Brady is the best Patriots tight end of all time.
He is. I think Gronk dropped a deuce in his pants behind the desk, being like, what did my buddy Tom just say? So
I do have a concern though, like not concern, I guess, but I want to see Stephon Diggs come out next week and the following weeks with the same kind of energy, right? I don't like. I feel like this was a comeback game, a get-back game, kind of a revenge game of sorts, right? Like, so he had a lot of extra motivation for the team to do well, but also himself to do very well, right? So what I don't want to see happen is him fall back into like, oh, okay, so I won my Super Bowl right now. I can go out and just kind of play the field and go through the motions. Not that I think he will, but that there's something that kind of popped into my head during the game and even after. So like all of his Instagram lives and how just pumped up he was about beating the Bills and talking about his time there. But again, you could even see it on the flip side of that. You could even see it on the post-game press conference when he's on the field talking to don't know her name, but Drake May and him are talking about the game, and like the two of them looking like they're just two peas in a pod. Like the connection and the chemistry is totally there, which is great to see. I do think too, like as you talk about Drake May and his maturity and how he's come along, right? That was a pure game-winning drive, right? We talk about obviously it being his first primetime game, everything else, and that wasn't something that like Josh Allen threw a pick on the final drive. That wasn't something like James Cook fumbled on the final drive and the defense saved it. Drake May went down the field after losing or after Buffalo tied it and had like a minute and a half or so left. He went down, drove down the field, and got him into field goal range. And then again, Borregales kicked it in. So the maturity is certainly coming along. I do think a lot of credit goes out to Josh McDaniels and obviously Mike Vrabel for just getting everyone rallied around. Vrabel's everything that Gerard Mayo wasn't. Obviously he's a former player, played here and won here, but Mayo did not have anything as close to the level of like team building camaraderie that Vrabel's able to bring to this team. So a lot to be said. Credit to Kraft for recognizing that it wasn't working and making the move to bring in Vrabel. I don't think that I think he wanted to keep him around, and now after seeing how bad it was last year, he has to be jumping for joy now.
And like you touched on the chemistry between Diggs and May, and I feel as if I go back to that final drive, right? And to me there were two defining plays, and I know one of them for sure. I don't know so Matt, you'll probably. I mean, I'll ask both of you. I know Matt tweeted it about 800 times. The video, the play where Drake May goes out to his right. This particular play, I think you tweeted it 800 times. It's the video of which the Drake May. It's from behind the play, and it's like Drake May's rolling out to his right towards the sideline, and it's the up the sideline throw that's like it's like only Stephon Diggs could have caught it.
The body control catch.
Yeah. So not the toe tap. It was the one that like it got them inside the 5-yard line, and the next play they scored a touchdown. I don't think that. So that obviously wasn't the final drive, but that was a second half play. But so that play, and then of course on the final drive right before the 2-minute warning, I want to say it was Deion Dawkins damn near had Drake May for like an 8-yard sack, and Drake May just like shrugged him off and found Diggs, and instead of it being like a 6 or 7 or 8-yard loss, Diggs gains 14 yards. So
I was waiting for Chris Collinsworth to say something about Patrick Mahomes every time they showed a replay. I was
Mahomes could have made
a play. He wanted to say something about Mahomes. Yeah. He was itching to bring him in, bring him up somehow, and that was his only way to do it. Yeah. But no, like he's allowing himself, and maybe this is Josh, maybe this is schemed, maybe this is just him kind of free balling, but he's allowing himself to show the athleticism that he has on these rollouts, on these like that play, for example, right where he's stiff arming while also throwing the ball away / to Stephon Diggs, and go back to the chemistry is he's directing traffic to Diggs, to Booty, to all these people. He's telling them, hey, scramble drill, get upfield, scramble drill, come back to me, go to the side. He's directing traffic while he's doing all of this, which again just speaks to the maturity that he has. It speaks to the level of confidence that he has and the level of respect that the receivers have within him to be like, oh, he's telling me where to go. He sees something I can't. Like, let me go upfield if I'm Diggs, let me go sideline and kind of just put the ball right there, so I don't get smashed if I'm Booty on the sidelines. Like it's coming together and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to finally see, because with the athleticism, there were no athletic plays in that sense week 1 against Vegas, and I know that was a criticism of mine and many others. Was it felt like Drake May was not being there was less. Not less. There was a shorter leash on allowing him to, I don't want to say ad-lib necessarily, but it felt like there was an emphasis on, hey, like stay in the pocket, go through your progression, find the guy. And I'm sure Drake May can get there, but as you saw in the Bills game, aided by the fact that, he was under pressure too often for my liking. But his ability to roll out to that side and do things and hit digs on multiple plays, the final drive, there was the toe tap play, which I think was that was at the end of the first half. I think that was to Demario Douglas. And then so it's like, allowing him to do that just opens up enough possibilities to where the defense is going to start to lose their assignments and not be able to account for certain guys in their positions on the field. And, it's nice to see that that's happening more, because I think that the more he does that in appropriate settings, I think that that's just another element to this offense that teams, like, you can't coach to, Drake May rolling out or Josh Allen rolling out or Patrick Mahomes rolling out of the pocket. Like, you can't plan for that because, it's one of those things that, right. Yeah. It's a scheme. It's a scheme issue, right? So, it's nice to see that hopefully they can add that level of complexity that defenses can't account for that makes this offense more dangerous moving forward.
Yeah. I'd much rather have him be a pocket passer who can get out, use his legs if he has to, versus Lamar. Like, Lamar is kind of a mix of both, but like a Justin Fields who can't throw, but
while he's learning the offense and finding his comfort in it, I think McDaniels learned that pretty early on after week 1 of like, let's use his strengths while he finds his comfort and while he learns and while he develops into being a better pocket passer and stuff like that.
It's kind of
he reminds me like the comps. There's a lot of comps when you coming out of the draft that like usually a lot of them don't end up being super accurate, but like his being a mix of Herbert and Josh Allen, they seem to be kind of spot on. The more you watch him play, right? He's not as big as Josh Allen, but he really, the more he plays, the more we're watching. He reminds me of about 65% of Justin Herbert, with more of Josh Allen's like ability, if that makes sense, in terms of like making those erratic decision throws and off-platform throws. But he really is that like weird combination of both of these guys. And hopefully he is a little bit more clutch than Justin Herbert. Nothing against Justin Herbert. I love the guy, but
not very clutch.
There is a chance that this is a rivalry of May versus Allen inside the division for the next decade that is going to be really, really fun to watch.
That'd be nice.
It will be nice. It will be really fun to watch and see how that all plays out. In terms of this weekend, I asked you, Ben, this question, and it's a little bit of a loaded question because it's not really a simple answer. But, I think we all expect them to win, right? And anything other than a win is a failure.
Yeah.
But what level in terms of like margin of victory, what level of win are you kind of like expecting? And in what level of win do you think margin of victory here kind of really matters, in the sense of, okay, if they came out and they squeak out a victory where, they score to go ahead with 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left, and then they have to stop New Orleans from scoring, and that's how they win. Or, they kick a game-winning – that's high, and they kick a game-winning field goal with a minute left, something like that, versus if they win by 10 points versus if they win by, 17 points. Do you guys feel like it's going to be a big difference coming out of the game in terms of, like, how are they coming off this game, how we're kind of perceiving this team, and how it would be coming out of that New Orleans game, depending on how that played out?
Yeah, I think anything over 7 points I'll be happy with. Like, I'm not expecting them to go, full Carolina Panthers and hang 40 on them or whatever they scored. But over 7, right? Like, you're coming off. Now, part of this is both teams are still pretty inexperienced. We have probably a little bit more age and experience just because of all the defensive players and things like that. But we're a pretty young offense, so I don't expect us to go, like I said, hang 50 on New Orleans. But over 7, that's not a good team. They're not a good defense. They're not a good offense. Spencer Rattler, they won last week, but they're just not a good team. So, yeah, I think if you have a similar win to last week where you're like battling, up until the final whistle, that might show that, like I said, there's a little bit more hype going into Buffalo, and you can kind of play up to your opponents, down to your opponents, things that I think bad teams do. So go out and win by 7. Go out and win by 10. Doesn't have to be running away. 27-17 is perfectly fine with me. Just don't make it a close game. Don't make stupid mistakes, mental errors. Don't fumble the ball, Ramondre Stevenson, whatever you do. I don't trust that you won't, but whatever. And get a touchdown pass, Drake May. You didn't have one last week. That's the only negative I have against you. If Hunter Henry turns his head around, it's a different story on the goal line right before the halftime. But, 10 points. Win by 10 and come home 4-2.
All right, Ben, how about you? I know you kind of gave me a little bit, but where's your thoughts?
Yeah, so for me, mine's, not an unexpected me answer. To me, it really comes down to like how they play, right? So say they go out there and they win 27-24, but they're constantly throughout the game, they're up by, 10, 13, like they're in that, somewhere, they're 2 scores up, somewhere between a touchdown and 2 touchdowns. If they're up, say, 27-17 and the Saints score a touchdown with, 40 seconds left and then just don't get the onside kick and the Pats get out of there with a 3-point victory, and but they were in control the entire game, then a 3-point win to me I'm not going to view that as a negative. Now, that's obviously different if it's the other way around where, the Pats are scrambling at the end and, they're playing a sloppy game and they have to kick a game-winning field goal, whether it's a go-ahead field goal late or as time expires, or they need a touchdown late to win it and they hold on. Obviously, if it's a tie game and you've played sloppy all game and, Drake May has another late fourth quarter drive and you get a game-winning field goal, a win's a win, but you're like, all right, well, you played worse against a worse team on the road in a better, in a more, road friendly environment, if you will. I'd rather play on the road in a dome than on the road in Buffalo. That would feel a lot different than, winning by 3, but only because the opposing team scored late to make it closer than it was. So for me, I'd be okay with anywhere, any win's a win as long as they're doing things like controlling the line of scrimmage, control the time of possession, don't turn the ball over, not taking stupid penalties. So I guess for me, it's more so how they play. I'd rather them, again, win by 3 or 4 and play a clean game than win by 3 or 4, but they had to score late to win a game because they played sloppy. I mentioned this earlier, the Saints have an opportunistic defense. I get that the Giants are not a good team, but the Saints force 5 turnovers. Again, Jackson Dart's a young quarterback. They don't have Malik Neighbors. Cam Scatterbo is a rookie running back, although he looks really good, but he's psychotic. They don't have top options, right? And I understand that they didn't have a top quarterback coming in, but they don't have their best offensive weapon. But to force 5 turnovers in the NFL, it's the NFL. The New Orleans Saints aren't going to go to the playoffs. They're going to have a top draft pick, but if you force 5 turnovers in the NFL, that says something about your defense.
They played Buffalo relatively hard the week before too. It wasn't until the late third quarter range that Buffalo kind of started to pull away.
Yeah, so like I said, clean game. Don't take care of the football. To Zach's point, Ramondre, please keep the ball off the turf. Please keep it in your arms. Sleep with the football all week. I don't care what it takes for you to feel like it. It can't leave your arms.
Dude, yeah. If you have to.
Yeah, and so little things especially now with Gibson being out for the year with a torn ACL. I'd love to see Travion Henderson get mixed in more so that he can continue to learn. I know, from what you hear and read about, he still struggles in certain pass protection situations, and, they're still a little bit concerned about his vision with the ball in his hands. But, especially in a climate controlled environment against a team that, is a winnable game. I'd love to see them get him some confidence, get him some plays that are successful. But again, clean game, no stupid penalties. I get penalties are part of the game, but you can't be taking stupid 15-yard personal foul penalties when James Cook is his knees on the ground and your teammate is celebrating a tackle for a loss. And I do appreciate, on that play, I do appreciate Vrabel coming to his defense, being like, well, we do teach our guys to play to the whistle, and there was no whistle. They hadn't blown the play dead yet. So, I kind of see both sides of it, but do you really have to decapitate the guy in front of the referee? Probably not.
No, it's a moronic play.
Yeah. So smart football, minimize the mental mistakes. And, I would love it if they could, have a repeat performance against the Bills. If they play as well as they did against Buffalo, against an inferior team, the Patriots should win this game by 14, 17, 20 points. But, clean game and, no major injuries, and just come back, go back to Foxborough Sunday afternoon with a victory.
Yeah, it's like I said from the start, this is obviously a little bit of a loaded question because there's so many variances in how it could play out versus the score. I just, similar to what you kind of said, Ben, it's not so much the final score, it's more about how they play. I just want to just see them show up. The Saints aren't a bad team in terms of they're just play god awful football, but they're just not a good football team. And so, no one on that offense generally scares you. Kamara is still a decent player, but he's not a guy that's going to break open games as much as he used to. Rattler is a guy that, at least so far this year, he's not really turning the ball over much. And what's his face? The head coach. I
don't know
what's his coach. God, he was with Dallas and Philly.
Philly's old OC, right?
Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore. I kept wanting to say KC Moore. I knew that wasn't right. Yeah, he's definitely calling a very conservative, approach for Rattler. I want to say Shitler right now because of but
speaking of which, you hear David Ortiz on Fox.
Yeah, he didn't know how to say it. They're like, we're not even going to teach you, but no, yeah, Rattler is. He's very conservative game for him, and he's not really turning the ball over, but he's not doing a ton either. They got Shaheed, who can extend the field a little bit, so they got to be careful with him. But as a whole, don't
forget about Chris Olave.
Yeah, but he's a guy that he's good, but if they put Gonzalez on him, I think that they could take care of him. They might put Shaheed on Gonzalez on Shaheed, and I don't know.
Yeah, and then
I don't know what they'll do.
And they'll have to scheme up a way to protect against Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, he's super scary these days. But anyways, yeah, no, it's more just come in, play good football, and if they do that, they should win. I don't even want to say just pure based on talent, because it's not like they have significantly more talent, but they have the better O-line, not by a ton, but they have a better quarterback, they have a better defense, they have a better coaching staff. If they come in and play how they should, it's a game that they should just, basically come in and be that little bit better team that puts up more points, that comes in and wins a game. Whether that ends up being by 7, 10, 13 points, somewhere in that range is what I expect. That's why I threw up the 27-17. That would be really what I expect. Maybe the Pats are up 24, 24-14, and each team swaps field goals or something like that over the final few minutes, and in the games the Pats ice the game with a few minutes left, and that kind of puts the dagger in the game, something like that. But that's really what it comes down to, is like you said, Ben, is really just control the game. If they came in and blew the doors out of New Orleans, I really would not be shocked. But like, to expect another Panthers game is obviously, it's not real.
The Panthers games, I'd be doubly shocked now. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, having said that, if the Patriots play like they did against Buffalo, and it's a cleaner game, right? Like, no turnover from anybody, specifically Ramondre Stevenson. Is it out of the realm of possibility that, given how well the Pats defense has played and that the Saints aren't exactly a great offense, like, could you see this game being like 30-14, 31-7?
No, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Like, I could see that, and like, I would consider, like, if you win a game 30-14, like, that's a blowout in the NFL. So
I mean, when you think about it, like 20-17, like when you would win a game 27-17, like that, there's only like one or two plays in that game that stopped it from being a 30-14 game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there's like, quite literally, it's probably one or two plays that stopped it from being a field goal instead of a touchdown, and vice versa. So it's very possible that a 10-point game all of a sudden becomes a 16-point game, and we're looking at it as they went in and took care of business, won by 10 points, versus they went in, won by 16, and they kind of not so much manhandled, but were the far superior team. So no, I wouldn't be entirely shocked, but I think we're all in agreement here that they should win easily.
Yeah, easily.
And without going too far in advance, Ben, like you mentioned, over the next the next 4 games, without going too far into the schedule, the next 4 games, they are the better team the next 4 games, plain and simple. They should win all of the next 4 games. Will they? I don't know. Do I expect them to? I'm going to say lean no. I'm going to, it's tough at this point with this team to say, I have the expectations that they go 4-0. I think that's pretty, a little bit premature and a little bit unrealistic. But they are the better team. So each game, at least at this point, I am going to say they should win this game, right? But again, will they win it? We went into the Pittsburgh game. They should win. Did they win it? No, they didn't win the Raiders game. I felt like they should win it, and they didn't. They should win all these 4, but will they? I don't know. And, if the Patriots could very, very, very easily be 6-3 heading in to that Tampa Bay game. And if that's the case, I mean, like,
pretty good place to be.
Yeah, I mean, like, if we talked preseason and we said the Patriots are going to be 6-3 after 9 games, like, we would all be saying that is that is great. That is
put money on it, but I'd be pumped.
That's as good as we could have realistically hoped for.
Yep.
At that point. So, all right, we will wrap this up here. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Patriots thoughts? Any thoughts in general?
Josh McDaniels is the best thing that could have happened to Drake May and this team, especially this offense. Stephon Diggs is still an elite wide receiver, and the Red Sox need to add a power bat and a power number 2
Zach,
arm.
do you think the Patriots are 3-2 with Ben Johnson?
What's the Bears record right now?
I think they're 2-3.
2-3.
2-3.
I'm gonna say no because I think
they just had a bye week, so I think they're 2-2.
2-2. I'm gonna say no because I think part of the reason that they are 3-2 is Rabel's like tenacity and he preaches toughness, and I think that after like the Steelers game, for example, I think that probably would have been a pretty oh shit moment. Like we have a running back, make a running back change. Probably would have been a lot of knee-jerk reactions, and I feel like Vrabel kind of steadies the ship and is like, all right, like maybe too much so, but I think he's like, no, we're good. You messed up, just don't do it again. He kind of keeps things all copacetic.
All right, Ben, how about you?
Hard to say. I mean, I would say probably not. They might be 2-3. Different style of coaching. Ben Johnson, and I mean, who knows what the offensive scheme would look like if Ben Johnson was calling the shots, and had, the kind of say that Mike Vrabel does. But Ben Johnson likes to, as proven in Detroit, loves to run the offense through the running backs. Patriots don't have that kind of talent at running back compared to what he had in Detroit. Not that he has that, not that he has great running back talent in Chicago. But I don't know if they're 3-2, but I don't know. I wouldn't say that they're like a 1-4 team either. Final thoughts. I think the Patriots are going to be more disciplined this week. They had some uncharacteristically moronic penalties, and I'm gonna say they take it 28-20. I think it's the Saints are going to get a late score, and not get a chance to score again and get it closer. So I don't know if it's 28-17, they kick a field goal, and knowing that now they only need the touchdown and the 2-point, or if it's a touchdown to get it from 28-13 to 28-20. But I think the Patriots are going to control this game more, and they'll be more disciplined, and they'll. I know that 28-20 is not like necessarily a convincing score, but I think they're going to win convincingly because I don't think the Saints offense is going to be effective enough to challenge the Patriots.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in a pretty similar boat where I just think the Patriots are going to be a little bit better of a team. I could see a scenario where the Saints just really struggle to put up points if the Patriots play the way that they should defensively. They seem to be kind of starting to play some good, consistent football defensively. They played really well against Buffalo and kind of reining both James Cook in and Josh Allen as a whole. So we'll see how things play out there. But we'll be back next week. Hopefully the Patriots are 4-2. Man, it feels a level of optimism in New England that we haven't had in about 5 or 6 years. Poor us, I guess. I saw someone post about May, and it was like, these fucking assholes. They had a 2-decade dynasty, and all they had to do was suffer for 5 years, and now they got another star. Blah 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 blah.
Is it Stavros or Stavy on Twitter?
I forget who it was, but I was like, maybe you should have draft better. But
sucks to be you. I'm happy with
thank you. Hey, shout out Chad Ryland. Thank you for missing that kick.
Yes.
If it wasn't for missing that kick, Drake May's probably a Patriot. I mean, probably a Giant, and we would probably have JJ McCarthy, which I'm still a little bit of a believer in. But I mean, we'll see what he ends up being. But
and thank you, Bill, for using a 4th round pick to trade up for Chad Ryland as well. People forget.
Yeah. Shout out Bill Belichick. He's not going to be a North Carolina head coach soon. No. Yeah, he's on the outs there. That lasted a long time. But okay. Until next time, we are raised.